We're dealing with a case right now of a young man named Andrew Henderson. He's involved in our organization now, and what happened to him was that in October of 2012, he was sitting outside of his home. He's just a regular young person. He is involved in his community a bit, and he lives in Little Canada. And so people may have seen some of the stories about this young man in some of the papers. And he was sitting outside of his home on October 30th, 2012, and he saw a police incident. And he pulled out his video camera and began to film. And and that's, by the way, a completely legal thing to do. It is legal to film police, and we'll talk about that more in a second. But as he's filming, a Ramsey County Sheriff's deputy comes up to him, grabs his camera away from him, his private property, and he said, wait, I'm not doing anything illegal, I'm just filming. And he was filming from 30 feet away, so there was no way in the world he was interfering with what was happening. She said, well, I don't want to show up on YouTube. That was her whole excuse. She takes his camera, takes it to her personal home. She never checks it into the property room. Takes it to her personal home, takes the thing apart, and destroys the film footage.
Wow.
Luckily, he happened to also have been audio recording it on his telephone, so you hear the whole exchange. It's really something else. Then, when he goes to the sheriff's department to try to get his camera back, first they know nothing about it because, well, she didn't even do a police report or turn the camera in. 2 weeks later, he finally gets his camera back, again disassembled and no film footage, and he gets charged with obstructing legal process and disorderly conduct. He was sitting on a bench filming.
Wow.
And this is legal. This is actually a case that the ACLU has taken up, which I'm really glad about.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, they are taking up this case, which is good, because we have to reinforce the idea that these folks work for us. We don't have to jump whenever they say jump. We don't have to say how high. This is ridiculous. The idea that the cops can just walk around telling a grown persons who are not breaking the law what to do is ridiculous. They work for us. And I mean, some of the frustration I always have around this is that they think that the minute they say do something, you have to do it just because they say it.
Well, and it gets back to this idea that you have a process. And there's a reason why there's a process for everything. Right. This idea that the camera was taken and wasn't even checked into the property room indicates that, well, first of all, they didn't follow the process, and two, probably anticipated that it was going to be returned to them anyway, and so this was just their way of hiding the key, so to speak, so that nobody could unlock the door.
Well, and worse than that, to be able to go into that camera and view the film footage, let alone destroy it, but to view the film footage even, you would need a warrant. And this was a warrantless theft of his property. Now, when all this began to come out publicly, that sheriff's deputy immediately retired, was never prosecuted for her crimes. He is, however, being prosecuted still for these crimes. They refuse, the City of Little Canada prosecutor refuses to drop the charges. And so far, this prosecution has cost the taxpayers of Little Canada $5,500, and it's nowhere near over because he hasn't even gone to court yet.
Oh my goodness!
This is crazy. This is if he would be successfully prosecuted, which we think that it's never going to happen, but if he would be successfully prosecuted, at most the fine for him would be $2,000 at most. But it's cost him $5,500 so far with no end in sight. This is the kind of ridiculousness that you see.
Right, and from when I'm listening to this, what comes to my mind is this is that kind of a case that they don't want to let go of because it's to send a message to everybody else. It isn't because they actually think that they are going to get a conviction because, like you mentioned, more than likely they will not. But it is to send a message to other citizens that if you hassle us, this is what you can expect. And so you better not hassle us because we will come after you. And it's similar to what I've seen in some other communities, not quite the same pattern, but in Maplewood, there was a couple of times where the city government would say, well, we would like to chill some citizen participation. So we're going to pick the most likely person to put a harassment restraining order against. And because
Terrible.
then if they don't defend against it, then we'll keep them from City Hall. Or if they do defend against them, well, they will go and communicate to everybody that they know what a horrible thing it was they went through, and it will chill the process of participation, and so nobody will want to ever speak up because they'll be fearful that they too will be charged.
Yeah.
And so that's what I see is going on with this case in Little
Yes.
Canada, is that it is, well, we just want to push it so that we can send a message kind of case.
That's exactly what they do.
Right.
You're exactly right. Oftentimes these things are about sending messages and trying to, cities and public officials have whole trick bags of things that they do to try to keep the community from actually having meaningful input into the government process. And so some of it is outright, harassment by, excessive prosecution or nonsensical prosecutions or, harassment or these, restraining orders and this kinds of stuff. Some of it are things like where you'll have a public hearing, but everybody gets, 37 seconds to have their say or whatever, this kind of stuff.
I think in our viewing audience that in all the communities we're in, there's probably many citizens out there saying, well, that sounds like my town.
Yeah, I think it must, because again, these are the tricks that they all seem to know how to do.
If I end up on YouTube, I'm going to be upset.